We're back from Lynn University in Boca Raton for the final presidential debate and our final segment tonight. Tonight we're taking a look at how this debate will play in the battleground states that will determine the election. Yesterday we got our new NBC Wall Street Journal poll, and it showed Mitt Romney pulling even. Dead even, 47-47 with President Obama. Late today, we got a new Washington Post ABC News tracking poll with the president up by 1, 49-48. With me now is MSNBC political analyst and author of What's the Matter with White People, Joan Walsh, and Washington Post political reporter Nia Malika Henderson. Thank you, ladies, for joining us tonight. I want to talk about tonight and this impact tonight. People love to say foreign policy doesn't matter. I think it does in a dangerous world. I think this president has evened out the parties in terms of the old advantage of the Republican Party in foreign policy during the Cold War. I believe is gone. These two men personify the modern parties. I do believe that Barack Obama, the president, has an edge. Is that true? In the voter's mind, is he seen as a serious commander-in-chief?
Is Mitt Romney?
No, the president.
The president is, but you have seen something of a closing of the gap. The president had, double-digit lead on foreign policy for months and months and months. It looks like Romney has been able to successfully chip away at that. It's 5-6 points if you look at the recent polls.
Why? Was it his persona in that first debate when he seemed to be, I would say, a bully too much? He was also strong. Is the strong part better than the bully part?
I think he was certainly... He looked like a commander-in-chief in that
because
debate.
He bossed around Jim Lair.
Because Obama looked lackluster.
Okay, Joan, this was sort of a display of personality, that first debate, which won't go away. Your thoughts on its impact on the foreign policy image of these two guys?
Well, I think we talk a lot about the women's vote, Chris, but I think that this debate is very important to swing women voters. Nia Malika is absolutely right. The president lost that debate largely on demeanor, and he let Mitt Romney seem reasonable. He cannot do that tonight. I have watched all day long, starting with waking up with Dan Senor on Morning Joe, as he has tried to moderate Mitt's crazy warmongering positions. And the president, if Romney comes out tonight and does what he did in the first debate and just smiles and pretends that he never said any of those things that he said, those horrible things about first strikes against Iran, etc., the president has got to call him on it. He cannot let him get away with being moderate Mitt when he's actually a warmonger, and we simply don't know what he would do as president.
Until recently, Romney was all like, we're not going to let him have a nuclear weapon.
Right.
It sounded to me like we're going to blow him out of the world if they get in our way. It wasn't the talk of a guy who wants to negotiate or use sanctions. Was, when I get in there won't be no weapons.
That's right. And
now he's talking, according to Joan and other people have been watching this past weekend, this evolution again to the softer
diplomacy.
There is a bit of an evolution. I mean, you saw him
you call it evolution that happens in 2 weeks?
There is something. I mean, there is.
Is it a flip?
On Iran, he has the exact same position, it seems to me, as President Obama does. I think the blueprint here is to be like Joe Biden, maybe a modified Joe Biden in terms of how he was able to go.
Joe Biden wouldn't hire Dan Senor or John Bolton to represent him.
I'm just saying, in terms of how he handled Mitt Romney, they say, well, what would you do differently, Mr. Romney? Is the only option on the table at this point.
Let's go through a couple of these. Let's go to Ohio. Joan, you love economic issues, social issues, foreign policy issues. One of the issues that's big in that part of the state is that Ohio, let's look at the gap, by the way, it shows a narrow gap between the candidates that fight for Ohio's 18 electoral votes. The Quinnipiac poll, CBS poll, has Obama up by 5, and the Suffolk University poll has Obama and Romney roughly tied, among at 47 each. In fact, exactly tied. The issue that Romney's using in the Midwest and the industrial states is China, that they've been too dishonest in their trade approach to us. They've not had fair trade, and that this president has been toughened up at the bargaining table. That might work, it seems to me, with a lot of people who feel their jobs are jeopardized by bad trade agreements.
Well, it might work, but I think the president can talk about the steps he has taken to enforce trade agreements. He's been more aggressive than President Bush was, Chris, and I think that he can also make the point that, we don't want a trade war with China. That, again, diplomacy is important here, and that people lose jobs if we go ballistic and start a trade war with China. So Mitt Romney's crazy talk on China is dangerous in a different way from his crazy talk or former crazy talk on Iran. But again, I think it comes back to those swing women voters. That gender gap only opened up with the Reagan election, and people thought, it's about choice or it's about equal rights. But it was largely about the fear that Ronald Reagan was a little bit of a warmonger. We're seeing that same thing with Mitt Romney, and I think the president, whether it comes to Ohio or Florida or Wisconsin, has to tie him to those policies, and that will reach women.
Okay, straight question to you. Nia? I've never heard it. Maybe you've heard it on the trail. I've never heard Romney display a knowledge or sense of history, including how wars get started, how the Chinese came into Korea fighting us when nobody thought they would because they saw it as a threat to them. These kinds of historic concerns by the right wing or the Conservative Party is don't get involved with a land war in Asia. The concerns about how wars get started by accident. Does he have that historic sense? Has he ever displayed it? He's running for commander-in-chief.
Right. I mean, I think Peggy Noonan probably was right in saying that Mitt Romney doesn't have a real depth of knowledge in terms of foreign policy. He certainly hasn't displayed it or history in terms of foreign policy.
What's he been doing the last 65 years? Does he read the paper?
He's run a campaign that's largely about the economy.
See, I hold that against him.
He spends his time.
How can you be 65 years old and not know American history?
Well, I think it's clear that he is, trying to adopt a lot of the neoconservative arguments around foreign policy.
Is that because he's an empty suit and there's plenty of room in there for new ideas?
No, I mean, if you look at the polls, people find that
Joan,
he's
you laugh
credible
because
almost
it's exactly
as Obama
the kind of person
policy.
the real ideologues love. They love Dan Quayle. They love W because they'd never read a book until they met these guys who had read books all their lives, and they have such tremendous hold on them. That's what goes on. And all of a sudden, these guys didn't have a thought in their head, and all of a sudden, they're hawks.
And Mitt spent all his time thinking about getting rich. To the extent he's thought about the rest of the world, it's been in that capacity. He doesn't show any curiosity about other cultures. He doesn't show any curiosity or humility or about history.
Okay. He went to the King David Hotel, never left it the whole time he was there. Anyway, thank you, John Walsh. He's everything you say. Anyway, thank you, Neil Malika Henderson.